Hey, everybody. This is the WODprep podcast, and we're back here to talk about post-open thoughts. So we're going to talk a little bit about how the open went for us, what we thought about it, what we learned, and what we think might be coming up. I'm here with a few of my favorite teammates, Charleh, CJ, and Ben, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves to say hi to everybody. Charleh, we'll start with you.
Hey guys, yeah, I'm Charleh. I'm obviously, you can hear my accent. I am the British of the group representing, and I am also the athlete as well. So I will be talking to you kind of from the stage floor, so to speak, my experience. Any of my opinions are slightly void compared to everybody else because they are the experts. So it's kind of, they educate me.
I don't know about that. I would say you're an expert at fitness, Charleh.
Yeah, what's up, guys? My name is CJ. I'm the head coach here at WODprep. I am not coming from the athlete experience side this year. I've been sidelined, but that's okay. I am excited to chat about all things, and you can't tell from my accent, I'm the southerner here. I'm from Florida.
My name is Ben. I am technically the owner of WODprep, but I probably know the least about CrossFit now at this point. But I participated in the Open. I had a pretty decent run at it, and I'm excited to bring my personal experience and then also a little bit of coaching experience to this podcast and really break down the Open and what we can learn from it.
Yeah, I think that we have a really cool perspective in that we're very invested in the Open, and our company really revolves around helping athletes through the Open. So we discussed our thoughts prior to the Open, and now we're going to go over our post-Open thoughts. I'm Savannah. I'm our Chief of Customer Happiness at WODprep. I'm also a coach, and I am a lover of all things CrossFit. Very average CrossFitter. Maximum
exceptional level. Weightlifting.
I'll take the compliment. Exceptional at weightlifting. I have been
and I second that as well.
Oh, thank you, Charleh. It's fun. I like to do it all, honestly. Okay, let's start with just our initial thoughts of the Open, how it went for us personally. Charleh, how was your experience this year?
My experience was pretty cool. Not gonna lie. I was pretty happy with my results.
Which were?
which were. So overall, I did come 33rd in the UK. I believe that was around 200 in Europe. So I was very, very pleased with that. I kind of got a solid first workout score. About, I think it was like 1,000 or something in the UK. Had to do a little bit of damage control on workout 2 with the running, about 5,000 or something. And then I came 4th in the thruster in the UK and 6th. So pretty mixed.
You know you're fit when you're getting into the single digits on some of these workouts in the entire UK, because last time I checked, there's a whole bunch of people who live there and a lot of CrossFitters. So getting 4th and 6th or whatever you got, I mean, that's nuts. So CJ and I knew that you were going to crush it. Charleh, this was your first full Open, right? Is that correct?
Yeah,
this is your first real attempt.
I did it once, but then I've had quite a few Opens where I've just not completed it for a variety of reasons. So I think this is definitely the first one where I've gone end to end, full properly stab at it. And that's what I said in the last podcast, that I've been head down to this podcast, to this Open this year.
It's your first proper Open.
Yeah, that's what happened with me too. Yeah. My first Open, I was like 50th in the world, and then it's downhill from here, Charleh. You never actually get better.
Hey, if this is peak, fine, I'll take it.
All right. Whenever you make the switch to let me coach you, it won't be a peak. It's fine. Yeah, selfless plug.
Ben, how was your Open?
The Open for me personally, I really enjoyed it, and that's because I think it was a very high skill open. There's been some opens especially over the last few years where I felt like the skills and barbell weights stayed light, meaning there was maybe a lot of like low skill workouts and the barbell really didn't get that heavy. It was kind of very much like cardio, grindy workouts, which are not my forte. However, this year, I would say nearly every workout had a nice, juicy part of it that I absolutely adored. And what's cool is that not only did they have my favorite open workout of all time, they also created my new favorite workout of all time. So it's like they took 14.4, which at the time when that was released was one of my favorites. And I've tested a few times during the year. I personally didn't get the score that I would have liked on it this year, but that's fine. We didn't really prioritize training for the open or specifically like setting myself up for success during the open weekend. It was kind of, I'm doing a lot of snowboarding and pickleball, but the fact that I was able to do all the workouts just once without being very fresh. And, I think I finished 95th percentile in whatever region I'm in. I don't even know. And I was able to make it to the next round. So that was fun. And I just had a blast. I love the 1 rep max thruster. I absolutely love 23.3 double unders, snatches, and handstand push-ups and wall walks. Like, oh my gosh, especially with the heavy snatches, I was in heaven. And then 14.4 is like one of my favorite workouts of all time. So overall, I thought the open was a ton of fun. I really liked the challenge that the different skills brought, and I was fairly happy with my performance. This is one of the first time, my worst performance, similar to Charleh, my worst performance was 23.2A. What was so interesting about that is I expected to like burn out in that workout. So I was like really cautious not to overdo it and hit like a red line too early. And I'm like 13 minutes in and I'm just like, I'm not even breathing that heavy yet. So it was very interesting. I was like, it was either I paced it improperly, like bad strategy, or I was actually a little bit fitter than I thought I was. I think might be a mix of the two, but I really would like to maybe retry that one and put the pedal down and see how fast I could go. I think I could get a much better score.
I'm just going to put in there, having followed your strategy, Ben, for 23.A on the pacing, on the running, I think it's the latter. I think you're a lot fitter than you think. That's what I'm going to go for, because I followed this strategy and a lot of others, and they absolutely nailed it.
Yeah. So maybe, it could potentially be a fitness thing, but CJ definitely won't admit that.
I like it. I think for me personally, I thought the workouts were all very interesting. I think sometimes workouts get announced and they don't have that level of excitement that the workouts had this year. They were creative. And like you said, they had a little more skill. They were a little bit more involved. And I think that they made them a little more challenging for some people. As you mentioned, compared to the past few years, we've seen slightly more simple workouts. And I'm not going to lie, that's also what I was expecting, and sort of that kind of simple but CrossFit-y burn. And these required a lot more strategy and a little bit more well-roundedness, I would say, start to finish, which I thought was a really awesome test. CJ, what were your thoughts on the Open this year?
Well, the only workout I was able to complete, I beat Ben. So it was a 1,000,000% success. What?
I'm holding up the number 2 because did you beat me on your first or second attempt, CJ? Just for research purposes.
Irrelevant. Doesn't matter. I beat you.
Let the record show that he beat me on his second attempt after I beat him on the first attempt. The record is now showing that.
Do you know how many scores are on the leaderboard? Only the scores that matter, boy. All right. So, and then I had some health issues pop up, so I was unable to complete the Open. But I like the Open, right? I think 14.4 is a fantastic test of the increase in the difficulty. I think 23.2 is an amazingly accessible fitness-wise to everyone. Maybe not so much the gyms and the layout and the mandatory floor plan. I think the thruster is an amazing strength test. It's not so far an outlier as like a back squat, or like a deadlift in the open, which can really, I think, like polarize the leaderboard, like just like completely throw it into a disarray. And then I think 23.3 was an awesome test, very similar to 14.4 and like an increasing sort of difficulty and sort of a pay to play kind of thing, right? You get to go on if you have the skills and the strength, and which we kind of anticipated, right? That was the 23.2 A and B, and something similar to 23.3 was sort of what we anticipated, this like increasing difficulty of double unders and some form of handstands, right? So I didn't think they would wall walk again, but I'm glad that they did, because the handstand push-up would have really, I think, pissed everyone off. It was surprising they went kipping to strict, but we'll get to that in a minute. But I liked it. I think it was good. If you look at the leaderboard, all the names are at the top. That should be across the board, even though if you look at the average numbers compared to like the last like 3 years, like your top 10 in the male and female the last 3 years have been almost single digit scores, right? So like Mal was like first, second last year, right? Well, she got like 200 and something in the thruster. So even though she won the open, it was like first, second, 205th, second or first or whatever it may be. So you look at those total numbers and you can see a bigger skew than you've seen in the years past. And usually if there's a lift that isn't preceded by a workout, even though the thruster everyone got to do the thruster relatively fresh at some point. So you're going to see those big skews. But again, the names are there, and in the masters groups as well. I think it was done really, really well, and it was exciting.
So I have a couple questions for you. The first one is, you mentioned that on 23.2B, having the max thruster as a test didn't skew the leaderboard as much as something as specific as a deadlift. Are you saying because people can specialize a little bit more or have a lot more specific strength in something like a deadlift or a back squat versus a 1RM thruster?
Right. Yeah. So you'll see people complain that there needs to be a power lift. But again, you have to remember that CrossFit is a test of broadness, right? It's not a test of speciality. And so when you have singular tests like that in only 4 workouts, you can over skew the leaderboard, because there were 2 strength components, which a lot of people are upset about. But the second strength component, the snatch, was preceded by shoulder endurance, right? And a skill of the double under, right? So it was pretty consistent. If you really struggled with the double unders, you probably, like, that was your problem. Like, that was the challenging point. And if you really struggled with the weight, no one got to the second, we'll just theoretically say the second weight, 135 or 95 or whatever it was, 95, 65, with like 3.5 minutes and just stood around. It was almost impossible, right? Those same people that had a weight struggle probably have a double under struggle or shoulder endurance, right? And those are just a more intermediate driven athlete across the board, right? And so the 185 was a big jump, but you had a gymnastic skill component that preceded it. And so the people who were able to get there, or usually if you can accomplish that many strict handstand push-ups to get there, it was fine. So while that was a big weight component, there was other things that preceded it. With the thruster, when you have a singular lift like that, the first time was 2015 when you saw Matt and Rich do it was like toes to bar, deadlifts, power snatch, and then you had 5 minutes to do a clean and jerk, right? When you had it set up like that, there were so many people skewing that would just tank the first part to, like, for team scores specifically, right? Like, and then they would just put everything into that. And so I don't quite like how it probably should have been, you had to finish this given work in a certain amount of time. And then the thruster, but anyways, we'll digress. When you have too much of a specialty like that, back squat or a deadlift, or a bench press pure, I think it's going to skew a worldwide leaderboard too far, And it could take some people out, because you could have 1,000 people or 2,000 people that deadlift 600 pounds in
Right.
a sport that have never even considered doing a competition, right? Like it just is the way it is. So anyways, so the thruster I think is a good, you had to clean it from the floor. So I think, and you had to press it overhead. So I think it was a good combination. I think it's a great test of broad strength.
Yeah.
The thing that I didn't like about it, CJ, was the fact that like, I feel like why not make it just like a ground to overhead? Because the fact that they made it a thruster specific, I felt like left so much wiggle room for like, even if we watch like the live announcement, like Patrick Vellner's like half step forward hip bend.
Oh yeah.
Like that was kind of a jerk, like, and so then that like opened it for everyone to do jerky thrusters.
Sure. Oh yeah.
I was just like,
agreed.
So why not some sort of ground to overhead or something like that?
I'm going to guess they didn't because it was new. So Boz has already talked about this. So Boz went on and talked about why he made the test. It was something new across the board, and that's why.
So it wasn't, I thought like the thruster, it was introduced so that there's some level of technical in there. Like I said, it's so easy to jerk that thruster. For instance, I got no rep on my easy first opening weight because I just jerked it from the tiredness and the fatigue.
Sure.
So I didn't know if it was him just being smarter and just making it just that little bit harder.
Well, yeah, I think so, and it's just a movement. Now that movement clearly is substantially harder to standardize than they ever thought.
Yeah.
Right. Like they tested it for sure, and whoever they tested it with, right. So you can just assume, X Games athletes aren't competing anymore, because that's usually what they do. Didn't have a problem with it, and so they didn't foresee. They perceived the step, but the step is most likely some form of like descending under the bar, even if you unless it's already locked, unless your elbows are already locked out before you take your step. Like it was definitely an unforeseen I don't know, hiccup that wasn't assessed in testing for sure. But something new is why they chose it.
Yeah, I liked it. Like no complaints on my end. I just thought it was interesting. I was like, man, like it seems like sometimes they'll program stuff where you're just like, really? Like kind of when they programmed strict ring muscle ups at a regional, way back when, it was just like, are you guys, what? Like how in the world are you going to judge that?
Right.
I think strict handstand push-ups is it's like one of the only strict movements that like is very obvious and easy to standardize.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise it's just interesting. Like a thruster is kind of like there's a strictness component to it that can easily be navigated around. It's like, where do you draw the line of like, that is a good thruster, that is not a good thruster. So I just thought it was really interesting.
Just on the strict handstand press up bit, I kind of disagree with you, CJ, that I think it should have been the strict handstand push up rather than the kipping, because what I observed was a lot of people go, oh wow, I am not as good at them as I thought it was. And these are the kind of people in my periphery anyway, who are just outside of that. They're in the quarterfinals realm, kind of looking at the semifinals, that little bracket there. And it's a really, I don't think it gets, the strict handstand press up doesn't get talked about enough because it just gets left out of training a little bit.
No, it doesn't. It should. If it does, that's on everyone else that it does not. Yeah. So I'll caveat that. And I'll take back what I said initially, if that's what it sounded like. I think it should have been a kipping handstand push-up to the third barbell and then a strict to the fourth barbell. That would have been, I think, a better progression.
I agree with that. Because the progression existed across the board, so it was interesting that there were 2 rounds of strict.
Right. So that was where I was. I think strict is very appropriate. I think kipping first would have allowed a lot of people to make attempts, especially the females. I mean, there was 13,000 females that got their first, or that got a strict handstand push-up, and probably 11 to 12,000 of them didn't make it off the wall, right? And so it was like you either had it or you didn't. And so I think it jumped too much, right? I think kipping there would have really allowed the middle ground person that you're talking about to have a more exciting workout. But again, that's not the point. It's the test. The test did what it was supposed to do in general, right? That person who got one strict handstand push-up would probably have finished in a very similar spot if it was kipping handstand push-ups.
Yeah, I think
it was too much of a separator.
And
it's too big of a jump. Yeah. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Charlie, and it would have allowed people to get a little bit farther. I'm not really pro or against. I think the test was what it was, and I loved the workout. It would have allowed middle people to get a little farther, and it would have allowed top people to finish faster. So it still would have reflected appropriately. So since we've been talking,
it would have allowed me to get to the 225-pound bar, which is all I wanted. I just wanted to throw around that 225-pound bar.
How close
were you? One rep?
No. I was like, I think 2 or 3 reps of the strict handstand push-ups, which totally caught me off guard. But yeah, Savannah.
Oh, you made it out of the 185 barbell.
Oh yeah, I did.
I thought you didn't. Oh, okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah, made at 185 was easy. I say that in like air quotes, but it was super interesting though, because like, yeah, we're all saying like, oh, the test did what it was supposed to do. But there were like some really high level athletes that didn't get out of 185 pounds. Specifically like Con Porter did, like he only got 5 snatches at 185. Like Jason Khalipa, I think got 0 at 185. I know he's like an X Games athlete, but I still was like, wait, what? So it was very interesting. I think that 23.3 caught a lot of people very off guard. And I think kind of the linchpin was that strict handstand pushup. Right, that set of 20 first strict handstand push-ups, I think, really threw a lot of people off, including myself.
Yeah, I think let's talk about that just for a minute, so we can. I think that kind of leads into finishing talking about 23.3. What we see in CrossFit, right, is this like general progression of the things that we do. Right, we learn the movement, we make sure we have the requisite positions or mobility to accomplish any movement pattern. Right, a burpee, a push-up, a squat, etc. Then we start to make sure, and then we make sure we have the strength to accomplish that movement, right? So we have the available range of motion through joints, and then we have the strength to accomplish whatever that movement may be, right? And then we start to build our ability to just do that movement in capacity or increased weights, okay? Then we start to work on doing that movement in under fatigue or with a high heart rate, and then we start to work on doing that movement paired with other movements that will create fatigue, so like handstand push-ups and running or biking, etc. And then finally, we work on doing a movement under fatigue paired with movements that are going to pre-fatigue said movement, okay? So this is where a lot of people are really upset in the open is the strict handstand push-up in and of itself is a very high skill, high strength, challenging pattern, okay? Basically, that and the strict muscle up. Like those are it, right? Those are very top of like our strict gymnastics that are challenging for people. And so not only did they test it midway in a workout, they tested it under fatigue of snatching. And while snatching is technically a pull, catching a snatch is not. There's obviously wall walks, which is a push, double unders, which is shoulder, but it's going to pre-fatigue. So they went into testing a high skill gymnastic movement, not pre-fatigued, or not fresh, but pre-fatigued. And then they went on testing the highest skilled weightlifting movement under fatigue from the snatch or from the strict handstand push-up. And so for a lot of people getting punched in the face and not realizing it, snatching under fatigue from not just high heart rate, right? A lot of people do that, right? And they cycle in things and even snatch heavy from a bike or run or something like that. You don't see heavy snatching under a lot of actual fatigue. The last time we saw it truly was the opening workout of the 21 games, right? The rope climb, run, snatch. And even then, that wasn't direct shoulder fatigue. That was just there. And that was a 185 barbell, right? And I think you had to squat snatch it. Yes. And so we don't see that. That's like the epitome of CrossFit, which is pre-fatiguing a high Olympic movement, a heavy Olympic movement, right? So that was really new. We've never done it like that in the open. We've seen it in quarterfinals or like snatch ladders and semifinals. But again, it's been a while, so that's probably why a lot of people just don't do that. That's a very challenging thing to do. It's very fatiguing. It impedes in a lot of other training leading up to that. Shoulders get sore, et cetera. And so, yeah, it was surprised that they went that like wall walk, barbell cycling, double under to like strict handstand push up, 225 snatch. That was like, big jumps, but it was good. It was a good workout. But yeah, that's where probably why a lot of people, high level athletes got punched in the face.
And CJ, one more point on it that I thought was interesting. It very rarely have I practiced those compounding movement patterns, right? But it's like most open workouts, most workouts in general, it's like push, pull, right? Exactly what you said.
Sure.
This is one of the first ones where it's like push, and it gets harder and harder and harder. So it's just like super cool. Like it was a test that I was just like, whoa, this caught a lot of people off guard. And it's simply because it wasn't the usual like opposing movement patterns or complementary patterns. It was compounding. There was shoulders, way more shoulders, and good luck to your shoulders. So I thought that was really cool.
I think the workouts like that are always really interesting as an athlete because it comes on to you so unexpectedly. And to be honest, I usually get to that point that is just muscular failure, which always makes me laugh. Like it's never made me mad. I'm just like so shocked that it happens that you just like, you're like laugh because you can't really do anything about it. When we think about kind of the workouts and the performances, earlier, CJ, you mentioned the scores on the leaderboard and how the top people always remain at the top, and we always like to use that to show that the tests were good tests, and that that it shows that the workouts were appropriate for the masses as far as narrowing it down into the next stage. What do you think that this looks like moving into quarterfinals as far as what the workouts might entail, because the open structure was a little bit different? And what sort of an athlete might excel?
Yeah, that's a tough one, right? And so we have to answer that question as we write programming. And it's always a guess. So you look at the movements that we saw, you probably assume that they're not going to be the same weights in quarterfinals. We'll almost for sure see a rower, right? Even though we saw rowing, right? We'll probably see a rower because the row is kind of negligible to the workout. We probably will not see ring muscle ups, which is really good for a lot of people that like got through to quarterfinals and don't have ring muscle ups. And so you have ring muscle ups. What are you talking about?
I could do without them though.
Yeah, for sure. So, it's interesting because especially in the older age groups, you saw, only from 50 onward, it was a very low number of people that got muscle ups, especially the females. And so, but a lot more people are going to make it to quarterfinals, even if you didn't have a muscle up. So the timing of that is really interesting because you're very unlikely to see it because the workout's got to be the same for the young masters. Now, the 35 to 39s, it made a big difference. And then for the individuals, it did too, right? Like there was a huge gap. A lot of them got way into the rower, et cetera. And so it's been tested. You've already seen it tested in a massive impact for the younger age groups. Well, it's got to be the same workout for the older age groups. So I don't think we're going to see the ring muscle up. I think we'll see the bar muscle up, and I think we'll see it early in a workout because I think they're going to really try and make a statement of like, you need the skill. And that might even be for this 55, 60s, and 65s, which is going to be a super shock to the system. And then I think we're going to see the high target wall ball because again the wall ball was not a very big implicator or a big influence to that workout. Probably chest to bars, GHDs, rope climbs, handstand walks. And those are always my guesses. I think those are really important to always make sure. And so I think, so there's only 4 workouts in the mass, right? So we're talking about that. Individuals have 5 still. Masters have 4. And so it's going to be interesting. And their strength was tested theoretically twice. So for the masters, I could see them not having a strength component in the next stage and it just being aerobic or maybe something just moving a heavier barbell in a workout, kind of like 23.3, but not ascending, just like, a heavier a heavy power clean. So like 1 year it was 4 rounds, 25 chest to bars, 5 power cleans. I could see them doing that exact workout. And it was heavy. It's like 245 for 35 to 54. 5 power cleans for 4 rounds. Can you just imagine a 50-year-old guy doing that? Some of them can, but not a lot of them can. Or like a 165 for a 50-year-old female. So some of the old masters workouts are just like, wow,
Insanely heavy.
Man, that was pretty intense. So, so I could see them doing something like that. So I think the very, again, it's always a well-balanced person. I think you're always going to see the same people make it through regardless of the test. But with the test that we're shown, I think it does give us a really good, maybe a little bit better of a picture of what could be. Like when it's just engine stuff, right? Like year 22, all aerobic, everything is for game, right?
Yeah.
You just maybe chest to bars weren't, but everything is basically fair game. Now we've seen a lot of really maybe higher skill components, so maybe there's a little bit less. And so we're going to base our programming on that opinion.
I'm definitely predicting at least 1, maybe 2, just like pure grunt workouts that like the stuff that makes me want to vomit. Just looking at it, right? Like the very like low skill, high grunt work grinder. I definitely anticipate something like that, like some sort of like really high volume, box jump, step over, wall ball row, like just disgusting workout. So that's what I'm anticipating. Just because I felt like we didn't see that in the open. And even if 23.2A was supposed to be it, I don't think it really was as cardiovascularly demanding as they kind of like anticipated. So we're going to have some sort of burn, long, low skill, like maybe even like the kind of like a dumbbell snatch, but burpee box jump over like combo or something like that. I'd say, especially knowing there's 4 for masters and 5 for individuals, like I think we're probably going to see maybe a couple. So it'll be interesting. And I think predicting kind of is futile because anytime we think we know something, like going into this year's open, it's like, well, we probably won't see, and they just threw that all out the window and we saw it all. So we have no idea, basically.
And just to kind of I want to put a question out to the Uno, where you reverse it. Anyway, we'll just edit that bit out.
Oh, got it. Okay, got it. No. Don't.
What are you saying over there in
No.
Europe?
To Uno.
Yeah, to Uno, you reverse it.
I get it now. I didn't get it at first.
Well, you can have it. It's a good one.
Perfect.
So to put a question out to you guys as from the coach's perspective, now that basically everybody's scores go back to 0, does that change the strategy? Does that change anything up for the athletes? Do you have to think about the quarterfinals in a different way? What advice would you give the athlete?
My advice for all the athletes who are making it to the next level is do your best in every workout, and that's going to help you make it to the next level.
Wow.
All right, on to you, CJ.
Perfect. That was great. Well, so, scores resetting to 0 wasn't always the case. So it is nice that it's not. So then a lot of athletes should take the open in stride if they know they're going to make it, right? So that's the first thing, right? And it's a little hindsight now. But for those of you that are really, I'll say, ego-driven and have to be high on the leaderboard, if you don't have a great reason except you want to be higher on the leaderboard to redo a workout, keep training. If there was a movement that didn't show up in the open, i.e. a high-skill gymnastics movement, odds are it's going to show up next. So like handstand walking, bar muscle-ups. I would definitely spend time, if you don't have them at all, trying to work on them. And as far as training does change, right? We know that the last year there was the heavier dumbbell, so you need to be working with the heavier dumbbell, the 70-50 for 54 and under, and individuals, and then 50-35 for 55 plus. The GHD said it was going to be there, so if you weren't doing GHD in volume, now you need to be. And so probably don't have to snatch heavy as like a driver of your training. You probably don't need to hammer strict handstand push-ups as a training, even though you should still work them because they're a great training tool. You can probably deprioritize them a bit and prioritize squatting heavy and deadlifting heavy. We haven't seen a heavy deadlift in quite some time, so we can probably expect to maybe see something like that. So making sure that you're touching high loads and high load in volume. And then again, prioritizing weaknesses. CrossFit is not about having big peaks. It's about avoiding big valleys in your training repertoire, right? So if you really struggle aerobically, spend this time, live on the bike, get some super nasty sessions in, and mentally work yourself through it. You can't really gain a ton of fitness, especially if you're an individual, before next Thursday or Masters 3 weeks from today. But you can certainly lose it if you're training too hard, too late. Okay, so keep that in mind. Volume is very important. Remember, you don't get fitter by training, you get less fit when you train.
I also think,
don't forget that.
I also think on that note, CJ, when you're saying that you can use the open to sort of guide where the quarterfinals workouts, what they may include, and that you're not necessarily going to be making any massive strides, you will be able to have familiarity with those movements. So if you're doing them more frequently, even though you won't be significantly better, being familiar with something and have done it more frequently will make you perform better, even though it's not like a tangible strength difference or a tangible technique difference.
100%. Right. Yeah, that's a really good point. So training now, usually within the month, 3 to 4 weeks out, it's not so much about changing fitness. It's about making sure you understand yourself when any type of permutation of mixed modal training comes together, right? So when you see 21-15-9 row calories and heavy thrusters, it's like, okay, well, you've done some heavy thrusters in training. You know that you're comfortable holding this pace. You've done a lot of rowing. You know you're comfortable holding this pace. And so what training does and what a lot of mixed CrossFit training does is it educates you on how to approach workouts. And that's where there's a learning experience that comes at this time of the year, almost what we call priming, right? It's like getting lots of touches, understanding how you perform with different pairings and things like that. When you do a lot of this kind of training, that's where a lot of the change comes. It's not that you're building a lot of fitness, right? Snatching 80% when you're really, really tired isn't just going to make you snatch 110% and hit a PR, right? I mean, it could, but that's usually not how we do it, right? And that's not how the traditional stuff does it. So Savannah makes a good point, and you learn a lot. You learn a lot of stuff, right? And your body's adapting to the feel of whatever these movement pairings may be.
Thinking about that, Ben and Charlie, you guys will both be doing the quarterfinals workouts. Is that right?
I will be doing them. However, I will not be doing them at the proper time because I have a business conference that's happening the weekend of quarterfinals. So unfortunately, with the timing of everything, I would either have to abandon the conference and just kind of sit at the gym, or do the conference and accept the fact that I'm probably not making it to the next level, which is true. I don't even know how do you make it to the next level? You have to get top 30.
Oh, for you, it's top 120 in the West, which the North America West is substantially weaker than East. So maybe you have an outside chance.
Not a chance in the world. So because of that, knowing what I know, I will not register for the quarterfinals because I won't be able to submit the scores on time. But I will. I do want to participate in I will do the tests and do them in the right order and do them in the same time frame because I really would like to see where I stack up. But I will not be able to do them on the leaderboard. But I know someone who will, and her name is Charlie.
Yes, I am doing the quarterfinals, Savannah. Ben has very kindly given me a day off on the Friday. Doing like 2 workouts in a 24-hour works in my favor. It's something very similar to my sporting background, so I'm very used to that. So I really quite like that addition to that they've changed this year. And then, so because I came 200 in Europe, and it's the top 60 in Europe for the girls that go through. My strategy is I'm hoping a lot of the top girls go onto the team side, so that takes away some of those top girls. And then also, because I'm kind of hoping there isn't any grunt work like the running and the burpee 23.2A, that then the workouts sit more in my favor because they will be a bit more traditional CrossFit, should I say? Is that the right term? You guys tell me.
Yeah. Charleh, I have a question for you. You said that your sporting background sets you up really well to do the workouts in a short duration of time. Will you tell us a little bit about what that background is and what advice you might be able to give other athletes as far as how that could set them up for success?
Yes, so my background was in swimming, and there's any swimmers watching, you know how much of like a high volume sport that is. So how galas work, so galas competitions, it's pretty typical to get onto poolside by 5:30 on the Saturday morning. It's at 5:30. Let me just quickly translate.
I want to go back to what the word said. The
5:30. Oh, gala. So you don't have a swimming competition; you have a swimming gala.
Oh, a gala, like a gala.
So
a gala.
No, gala. So gala.
A swimming gala. Okay.
Yeah, you have a swimming gala. You don't have a swimming competition.
Okay. It sounds like a proper party.
Then pretty much you've got like 3 to 4 races over an 8-hour window, and then you might do that the next day. And if you then get to the finals, you then have to double all of your races on top of that. So you might do 8 races on Saturday, and you might do another 8 on the next day, and that's it, standard. So we all got into a routine of music. So we always have a competition song which you play to get your brain into the mindset of the race, because once you're on that 8th race, you need some mechanism that's going to switch you back onto the game face when you're really, really tired. So I have my songs that I play on repeat before I go and do a competition. And then the other thing is sweets and any kind of easy carbs. You almost have to, if you're doing, I'm not saying it is for the quarterfinals, but this is from when it was like really high volume swimming. As soon as you came out of the water, you'd instantly have to start eating again, even just small little amounts. And then before you go to the next race, you're eating a little bit amount again. And you might have that in liquid carbs in liquid form, depending how you're feeling that day. I think they're the 2 main tricks. We had all sorts of rituals that I won't go into, but we always found that was the quickest way to kind of keep your head in the game and keep your energies up.
I really like that mindset advice. I think that that's something that's really valuable. And I think that it can also help athletes kind of, like you said, refocus, get your head in the game, and mentally prepare versus having more of that, I'm very tired, I don't feel like doing this, Instead, that can hype you up a little bit more and help you kind of just like have that pre-competition routine that can help you execute what you need to execute when you need to, despite circumstances.
We'll change things, right? A lot of people change up things. So the only thing that I would talk about is like maybe a little bit of nutrition leading into the weekend. Maybe not for the individuals because they compete in 6 days. It doesn't really, you shouldn't be, like, tomorrow should be maybe a little intensity, but not a lot of volume. And then the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday should be very, very little. But for the masters that are kind of ramping up intensity for the next 3 weeks, make sure you're consuming your, protein 1 gram per pound, if not more, and you have to increase your carbohydrate take for sure. Right? If you're hitting intensity Especially our training, the training does change a good bit because we don't really believe in intensity for long periods of time, or in volume for long periods of time. It just doesn't, in our experience, doesn't work out super, super well. And so for those that this is a big ramp in volume to get ready for this competition, you have to adjust your nutrition for that point, right? And it's just eating a little bit more. Try and keep it clean. If you can't keep it clean, it is fine to like eat some sugar to like add into those carbs. It's only 3 weeks. You're not going to get fat. You're training really hard. Yeah, it's perfect for Ben. You shouldn't be losing weight during this time. If you feel like you are like getting thinner, then you have to eat more for sure. Those are like, and that's just very broad. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a dietitian. That's just like a broad stroke of general competitive food consumption. That's the only thing that I would really advise on. And then don't change anything for game day. Get up, train at your normal time, the best that you can, and give yourself plenty of time in between the workouts. I think that'll be it. Don't like, if you only have a small window, I know some people with the time, the 24-hour window, it's just what they're forced to do. But if you can, hit a workout for 5 hours later, hit a workout, take off work, be an athlete for a weekend, be good to yourself. Don't over stress about it, and hit it like it's, that's all your focus is. All right. Well, we know Charlie's going to have a drink beforehand. So before each workout.
Yeah, I do need to have a think about my normal pre-competition ritual. I'm not sure I can have a drink every night before each workout.
Well, no, it's before every workout. So you have to have one the night before, and then after the workout's done, you have to have another one since it's 2 workouts, right? So five drinks in about, I think it only came out to be like a 36-hour period before like start to finish. So that's fine.
I'm basically just going to do the beer mile. That's all I'm doing.
Right. Let's go.
Well, you guys, I think we really touched on a lot that has happened and a lot that's coming up. To wrap up, I want to go back to Charlie's hype song playlist. And I think that we should all share what our pre-competition hype song would be. Everybody can add these songs to their playlist. They can have a little bit of our hype going into their workouts. I'll go first because I'm ready. I would choose Rap God by Eminem. Like, I could listen to that song.
That's such a good one.
On repeat, like for all the workouts. Like I would just like, it's absolutely my favorite hype song. Is anybody ready with theirs? Okay.
Well, I've got several. I've got a whole playlist, but there's 2 that come to mind especially. One is Fisher, Losing It. You guys got that one? Yeah. And then
yes, you know the song, Ben. He's losing it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And then the other one is Bass Hunter as well, which is a proper old.
That's such a European thing. I respect that so much because that's on the top. But they would never. That's like so many people don't listen to hardstyle in the States. Like,
what's hardstyle?
That's the type of music Bass Hunter is. It's a different type of EDM.
Yeah, so if anybody's not listened to Bass Hunter, then you just have to do it. It's top tier.
My number one hype song ever is "Knuck If You Buck" by Crime Mob, and it's not even close. It is, and if whoever's listening, you probably don't know that song, and that's okay. Don't let your kids. Oh yeah, for sure. Don't let your kids anywhere near. They're all dead. They were all killed at some point in drug deals, but they released some hype music, and that was like Pee Wee football.
I love it. And on that, you guys, I think that we can wrap up for today. We'll look forward to hearing how your quarterfinals experience goes and talking to you next time.